Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today's Sunday, August 17th, 2025, and Finance Canada is, according to Blacklock's, trying to ban large cash deposits regardless of the source. And that's not great. Large cash deposits. Businesses do large cash deposits. I worked at Taco Bell in the 90s, and we used to do $5,000 hours. And I thought that was a lot of money for Taco Bell. I thought, man, like this is a busy Taco Bell. We're doing $5,000 hours. And at the end of the night, we'd have to do the drop. Like we'd have to take the money. We'd have to turn the safe on because there was a timed safe thing because every hour you'd have to do a drop into the safe of all the extra money. And then at the end of the day, you'd go and put the money in the bank. And so there were all of these cash money flying all over the place. And I guess that's largely been digitized. And now Finance Canada definitely wants to ban cash money. So I think we're already using the system that they want us to use. We are just being transitioned over to not being able to use cash. And so there's no option other than to use their central bank digital currency, or I guess Bitcoin. But I'm worried that maybe Bitcoin is part and parcel of this whole plan too. Van der Leyen has invited herself to the White House on Monday with Zelensky. She says, "I'll see you there, Donald." And so that's interesting to me. I think, will this peace deal be scuttled because of too many cooks in the kitchen? Police corruption cover up in Durham. I remember reporting on this story in 2019, like before the world went absolutely crazy. So it's interesting that I've got this update. And the update is nothing to see here, citizen, move on. So keep walking, just keep walking. So I'll update you with that. Liberal leadership discrepancies, 200,000 ballots not present, nowhere to be found. I guess they just didn't exist, or maybe they were inconvenient. So if you take out these 200,000 ballots from the Liberals who are voting for the leader, then Mark Carney wins 85% in every riding. Should we do it? Yeah, do it. I guess that's what happened. Maybe, I'm not sure. Gazans were being flown all over the United States. Laura Loomer figured that out, and she has blown the whistle on it and stopped it. And so I've got that whole series of events for you as well. It's a very interesting turn of events, and like, man, just absolutely wild and crazy stuff going on. And the wildest and craziest, of course, is Air Canada being ordered back to work, and that benefiting our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, because Brookfield owns shares in Air Canada. And so weird, right? Like weird. Or maybe just owns Air Canada, like outright. Just there you go. So holy cow, right? I mean, this is we've just been conditioned to accept this kind of corruption and cronyism and all of the rest, but it's still jaw-dropping. It's still surprising for, a guy in his garage remembering the 90s when things seemed sane. Anyway, lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we've got to start with the Air Canada legislated back to work strike and all the rest of that. Jing Li says Pierre Polyv fought for better wages for flight attendants while Mark Carney's jobs minister threw them under the bus and banned their ability to strike for fairer wages. Oh, and I got a comment on Canada Poly talking from a flight attendant, and she said that she was paid for when they're on the tarmac. Anything according to her boarding is good. If you're on the runway ready to go, you're getting paid there, but there are parts where you're not getting paid. So I was incorrect yesterday, and thank you for helping me understand what was going on. I still think it's a pretty big deal. Let me know if you think that it's a good deal, or if is the union being crazy here, or is Air Canada being crazy here? I think the problem fundamentally is that Air Canada bet on the government coming in and legislating the union back to work. And so they were never really negotiating in good faith. They never really wanted to solve the problem. They wanted to say there's an impasse, and they wanted the government to come in and fix it. And that's exactly what happened. And so I think that that's an issue because that totally undermines the power of the union. And I think that that's a problem. So is the union being crazy? I don't know, man. I think that they may have some legitimate grievances, right? And there could be things that are fixed up for those people. And that's the union's job. But instead, they're being undermined by the government, and they can't operate at all, even if I think unions they enrich themselves instead of the workers that they work for. But I digress. Here's Pierre Polyv and what he said about the whole thing on August 6th. So this has been brewing for a while. This is not new. This has definitely been a problem that's been festering. And so Pierre Polyv says, "Dear Minister Hadu, I'm writing to urge you to amend the Canada Labour Code to require that federally regulated airlines pay flight attendants for all hours that they are on duty, not just the time spent in the air. Today, many airlines begin paying flight attendants only when the aircraft's doors close, the plane pushes back, or the wheels leave the ground, but crews are expected to arrive well before that to conduct safety checks, assist boarding passengers, handle delays, and perform other duties. They remain off duty after landing to assist passengers and complete post-flight tasks. All of this is work, yet much of it goes unpaid. No other federally regulated worker would accept being on a job without being paid, and neither should flight attendants. It's time to end this outdated and unfair practice, which is why in the last parliament, Conservatives introduced Bill C-409, which would have ensured the flight attendants are paid for their pre- and post-flight work time. I urge your government to update the labor code to ensure flight attendants are paid for every minute they're required to be at work, from check-in to sign-off. These professionals play a vital role in our transportation system and deserve compensation that reflects the full scope of their responsibilities. So I think that's a well-intentioned, well-measured letter, and Patty Hadu ignored it. Of course she did. And here is Patty Hadu announcing the back-to-work legislation for Air Canada's flight attendants, and it's not great. This is not a good way to run the country. But at the same time, the argument on the flip side is we have to get these planes moving. We can't have, this is the end of summer, that people are relying on this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I see all those arguments too. But this government, specifically this government, does nothing when they have time to do something about it. And then when it gets to a crisis point, when people are walking off the job, when it's already impacted people, then they start acting. And that's a terrible effing way to govern. These people are incompetent or purposely doing it to cause as much chaos and look like they're trying to solve the problem as possible. And I don't know what it is, but I believe a little from column A, a little from column B. Here's Patty Hadu legislating the flight attendants back to work.
As Minister of Labour, I have exercised my authorities under Section 107 of the Canadian Labour Code to direct the Canada Industrial Relations Board to order the parties to resume and continue their operations and duties in order to secure industrial peace and protect the interests of Canadians, and the economy. I've also asked the board to assist the parties in reaching a settlement of the outstanding terms of their collective agreement by imposing final and binding arbitration, and to extend the terms of the existing collective agreement until a new one is determined by the arbitrator. As Minister of Labour...
So there you go, and they're going to binding arbitration. Yay, you're welcome, everybody. Here is Patty Hadu, and she's being asked, you guys are moving really fast with this. What's the hurry? Why didn't you do anything? And then all of a sudden you're doing something. Does it have anything to do with these conflicts that she brings up? Here we go.
Experts that I've spoken to about the use of 107 say that the government's repeated use of this is poisoning negotiations because companies believe that they can kind of bargain to an impasse and then the government will step in and prevent a strike from happening. Why did you choose to use 107 so quickly here? I think this is the fastest use of it I've seen. Is your government anti-union?
I absolutely reject the notion that our government is anti-union. In fact, under the previous Liberal government, we considerably...
Pivot. Now she's going to give examples of supporting the unions, but in this case, they're completely undermining the union.
Strengthened the Canada Labour Code. We banned the use of replacement workers, and we stood side by side with unions in terms of supporting their work, not only in labour negotiations, but also in training and recruiting new members. And so this work will continue. We believe that unions are an essential part of a healthy and growing economy. However, in a case like this, where multiple efforts have been made to conclude an agreement that satisfies both parties, and it is clear that they are at an impasse, it is very clear they need some help in arbitrating the final items.
If there's sometimes you're salaried and you do extra kind of work, but it balances out, right? Like you check your email after dinner because you're salaried, or your boss emails you at 8 o'clock and you're like, oh my gosh. And then they're like, can you do this ASAP? And you feel like, yeah, maybe I'll do this right now. It's fine. It'll take me 5 minutes. I'll do it right now. It's not a big report. It's just can you do this? Can you pull this number? I need this for the thing I'm working on. And you kind of do it. And you're not strictly paid for that hour, but you kind of do it because yeah, all right. And I was always taught salary is you work all the time. Not really all the time, but there's a class of job where you're kind of working, right? And so I don't view it as necessarily totally outside of the realm of possible. But if you consistently have to show up an hour before work and you have to stay at work for an hour after work, some police officers, one guy I know, he did his 12-hour shift And then at the end of 12 hours, he came back and he did like 2 hours of paperwork after that. And I said, why, man? Like, isn't your shift over? He's like, oh yeah, but you can't leave until you get your paperwork done. And he got paid for those 2 hours. Like, it's not like he got shorted those 2 hours and that was on his time, right? So like, in one respect, I understand the salary and I understand that, you know, you're going to do extra stuff. On the other side, if you're consistently doing hours worth of paperwork and other professions get paid for that paperwork or hours extra work after the main duties are done, then you should probably get compensated for that. And if it's part and parcel of the salary, then maybe the salary should go up. Maybe everybody should understand that. I'm not an air stewardess. I don't particularly like flying, especially these days after watching all of the whistleblowers from Boeing and things like that and watching the air crashes lately. But all of that aside, I'm not an expert in this field, so I could be wrong about all of this. But there are kind of nuances when you get into working period, right? Like some salary people expect you to work through dinner and they'll buy you dinner, but they expect you there until 6 o'clock, right? And I've experienced that. I've seen that. So there's all sorts of weird things about weird places that people work, and airlines are no different. Is this a hill to die on, or is the government right to do this and do this the way they're doing it? I think they failed. I think they knew on August 6th, at least, that this was coming, and they could have done something then to be preventative about it. But is this one of those nuanced things where it's all part and parcel of the salary, or not so much, right? And so I genuinely don't know, but I think it's weird, and I think our government's kind of crap. Mark Nixon says, congratulations, Canada. You voted for Liberals. You got the worst. I don't think we voted for Liberals. I think our elections are rigged. You got the worst inflation in 40 years. You got unaffordable housing, and now you're not even allowed to strike for fair wages. Enjoy the ride. It's happening in England. It's happening in Australia. It's happening in Ireland. It's happening in all sorts of places. The government is doing things that the citizens don't want in a weirdly coordinated way, and it doesn't seem like we're choosing that. It seems like it's being forced on us, and we're being told, oh, you're definitely choosing that, but don't look at the books too much because that might be uncomfortable for you. Dave says the Montreal-based airline, Air Canada, says the first flights will resume this evening, but that it will take several days before its operations return to normal. So there you go. People who are waiting in hotels had their 7-day vacation extended to a 9-day vacation, and they went to the Iberostar on Air Canada's dime, right? So that's interesting. And the airline stewardesses, flight attendants are being legislated back to work. Wild and crazy times. Mr. Sunshine Baby is highlighting the same thing that Mark Nixon's highlighting, which is interesting. He says the Liberal government has ordered Air Canada flight attendants back to work. You are not allowed to protest in Canada. You are not allowed to strike in Canada, and you are not allowed your rights in Canada, right? You are allowed to protest for Palestine, though. That's what you're allowed to do. We're going to look at that across the board as well. The invasion is a big story these days, too. Table Salt says, before we get there, we have to talk about the fires and the glyphosate being sprayed in Nova Scotia. And Table Salt says, I've obtained a document that appears to show the province of Nova Scotia is spraying the herbicide Bayer Vision Max glyphosate linked to cancer on thousands of acres of forest during a drought and banning hiking. And so this is the approval number and the approval holder, so the people who are doing it, and the method, Ariel, and the county listed in approval, Colchester County, and then site location according to this thing's property. So where they're spraying this stuff, and then it's got all the rest and the hectares and all of that, and it's got Vision Max in the far right and Timberline. I don't know what Timberline is, but I would imagine it's similar stuff. So pretty wild. And here are the 2025 approvals, she says. So that's concerning, to say the least. Table Salt says, now that people are banned from the forest in Nova Scotia, the government is suddenly spraying thousands of acres with Roundup, adding millions of pounds of dead material to the tinderbox. What? Nova Scotia approves glyphosate spraying on 3,577 acres of drought-stricken, fire-prone forest. And so that's not good. And what it does is it kills the foliage around the tree, I guess, and because that was having a problem, like making a problem for the carnivorous trees they wanted to encourage. And so they'll kill that other creeping trees, and then that dead material around the other trees could light on fire and then kill the whole forest, right? So like Awesome. Great work, everybody. Mario says the government's right. It's not climate change causing fires. It's people, government people, glyphosate. They may as well light the match themselves. So, yeah, I mean, like, it's terrible because people who know are not hyperbolic about it, but are not overstating it. This makes things more flammable. This causes problems. What are we doing? This kind of quasi geoengineering, and I don't even know if it's quasi geoengineering. It might just directly be geoengineering. And people who know, and everybody who doesn't know, which is like 80% of people, just bop on by not understanding or worrying about how they're being lied to and the extent they're being lied to the extent they're being lied to, and how much they're paying for the cause of all of these quote wildfires and things that are going on. Pretty wild stuff. And so I don't know how this whole thing is going to end. I think it's just going to be more of the same, unfortunately. Inevitable West, let's talk about the invasion of the West ongoing. And Inevitable West says breaking Operation Raising the Colors is gaining more and more traction across the United Kingdom. This is the best form of protest. So people are going and buying Union Jack flags and then taking them out and putting them up everywhere, absolutely everywhere. So here's just one video, and I've got many videos covering their face to raise British flags across highways. Here are people, two guys, one guy's holding the ladder and the other guy's climbing up the light post, and they're hanging the Union Jack on the light post. And people are honking and saying, yeah, I agree with that. Let's do that. And so that's one. And here's another one. Somebody's driving down the road, and you've got St. George's Cross, St. George's Crosses, and you've got Union Jacks as well. And so that's very interesting. Here is BBC reporting England flags hung by locals taken down. England and Union Jack flags being flown across parts of Birmingham have been taken down, with the city council claiming it is due to maintenance works. In recent weeks, Union Jacks and St. George's Crosses have been hung in Wolseley Castle and Northfield areas of the city, with locals said they were doing in an act, or which locals said they were doing in an act of patriotism. So, but Birmingham City Council issued a safety plea to residents attaching the flags to lampposts and other street furniture. It said it was upgrading streetlights to energy-efficient LED lighting and had so far removed about 200 banners and flags. A statement issued by the council said the work would reduce energy use and lower maintenance costs. And they're claiming safety. Safety is a safety concern, for the LED lights. So they're asking people to not put up the new flags. I don't know if they're going to put up the flags again after replacing all of the lights with tracking LED lights. Did I say tracking LED lights? But here's this guy. Alan says, great to see people proudly flying Union Jacks in Hastings while Birmingham Council take them down, while championing Pakistani and Indian flags and wasting 90 million taxpayer pounds on failed IT and soaring crime. We need to keep upholding values of freedom and liberty, rights in Britain together. So he's talking about this. I'll give him a minute here. He's talking about it.
Well, we're here in Hastings, and it's good to see that people are putting out Union Jacks. We've seen that Birmingham City Council has been taking them down, whilst at the same time promoting the lighting up of Pakistan Independence Day and India Independence Day. Great, they got independence from Britain and from England, but why is it that the Union Jack is being taken down? I'm glad to see people putting them out proudly across the country, where we've got these busybodies that think it's disgusting to have Union Jacks. We remember what Emily Thornberry said about people like with white vans and Union Jacks. That's the view that this current government have got about people. That's the reason they're weaponising a lot of the two-tier justice and policing and the treatment of people differently. Now, we know that you must take a not guilty plea, and you must get lawyers. You should get a free speech union and others to represent you. Become a member.
So there you go. This is the St. George's flag. This is the Union Jack. The St. George's flag is the red and white one with the cross on it. So that's the St. George's flag, and that one's seen as much more radical than the Union Jack. So the fact that he's got a St. George's flag in his video is interesting. Here's Inevitable West again. Says thousands of flags were risen in London late last night in a large-scale Raise the Colors operation. Sadiq Khan is going to have a meltdown. So you can see a bunch of flags here and people with ladders walking around, ready to put up more St. George's flags. Those rebels, right? When did counterculture become patriotism, right? So now the punk rockers are coming to, fix your infrastructure and put up your flags, right? And people are responding well, right? People want to see this. That's notable. That's interesting. Here is further news on the invasion ongoing. We're going to have to kill the stream soon, everyone. People were asking, where do I go when this stream is done? And there's a full show. If you go to CanadaPoly.com, you can also order online at Spotify and Locals. And I think that's it right now. So CanadaPoly.com is probably the best one. Spotify, I hear you can't share my show, which I'm not really surprised about. And YouTube, I'm very censored and so on and so forth. So if you want the full show, you go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up, and I send you an email and you get access to the full show. And usually people watch it after the stream. So I don't have a way to live stream the whole main show because I have to record the whole main show and then I go right now to record the rest of the show. And so I'm sorry that I don't have a live stream for the whole for paying people. I wish I did. If I could figure it out, I would figure it out and do it, but I have not been able to figure it out yet. So apologies about that. Anyway,